So what I'd like to do maybe is just take a few minutes to maybe talk a little bit about how I ended up being in this chair. But you know what? Each one of us could do the same thing. But also maybe throw out some interesting questions in terms of where I am in my life right now. But this thing about a dialogue, not like I'm talking at you, but a dialogue, if ever there was a time for these to be taking place, it is now. And I thought I would also end with sort of like the 10,000 feet in the air of how I'm looking at it, because I'm getting ready to take some downtime. I think all of us should. I get worried. The Quakers have a great thing. AFSC does every 6 years you work, you get a year off. And your job's waiting for you when you come back. So if you don't mind, if I'll divulge a few things with you all, and then I think that might help like plant some seeds and for further conversation. But before I begin, I have to say I'm almost in tears about this. I was born November 2nd, 1948. I mention that date because all of us post-World War II baby boomers born between 46 and 64, anyone in that age group, raise your hand. 79 million of us. And if you think about the baby boomers and all the things that went with that, war, feminism, LGBT, whatever, anyone in the room between the ages of 18 and 25, can you raise your hands? 80 million of you. If ever there was a time to be in the same room, having a conversation, not necessarily meaning we agree with each other, this is it. That is a huge demographic. And I'll throw two more at you before I share my little story. By 2050, if not sooner, this country will be majority people of color. California already is. That's the reality of where we're going. Women were now a numerical majority. But when first I was just in P-Town, and before the pilgrims, they went there for a minute and then they ended up in Plymouth somewhere. Where's that Plymouth damn rock? It's not the size of this. Oh, is that the rock that holds my door open at my room?
It exists.
Yes, it does. But who were the two sets of folk when people landed here that said, not you, you couldn't vote, serve in the military, marriage is anything but, sets of people, we think, but the majority. But the other one that I'm really fascinated by is who was already here indigenous to these lands? Talk about Standing Rock. And whenever I hear we want our country back and we're going to build this, that, no. But what is it about? And I'll tell you what I think it is. It's the last vestiges of what used to be, and they're trying to hold it back as much as they can, and they're going to put anything in the way. But you know what? It's just a question of time. And what I get concerned about is when we start going into these compartmentalized, I only do choice, I only do environment, don't do it. It's great that you do, but if there's not a way in which we are in conversation, and not only in English, that really makes them nervous and gets them concerned. So I lay that because that's where we're going, and what the foundation we lay here. So I want to just share a couple of quick stories about Mandy and how I got here. And at some point, it is important to hear your journey, and it's key. We don't just show up and my name is and my group is. No, how did you get here? And why are you here and what sustains you? I was born November 2nd, 1948 at Albany Children's Home. I'm from Albany, New York. And my brother Ronnie, 1 year older than me. My sister Laura is 2 years older than me. I was born, our mother got up and left and never came back. Life happens. And the circumstance was, this is 1948 in New York State. If the father cannot financially afford to take care of you, he goes to jail, we become wards of the state of New York. That's where I spent my first 18 years. But you know what? We're all in the same room. That's what I'm saying, Howie. So what's interesting, though, is that the way it worked is like, does anyone know where Russell Sage Junior College is? It's up on, that used to be the Albany Children's Home. That's where I lived for my first 18 years. And so circumstances happen, and in this children's home, it's like, I think maybe it's almost like 100 people. They're almost like dorms, kind of like. So we were there for the first 8 years, and then the home was being sold. So all the children had to figure out, they were going to figure out where they all had to go. Now, it just whatever it is, but it turned out because there was very few children of color, there was this black farm family in Chatham Center, New York, called the Minnesys, Claude and Julia Minnessy. They came in, they met Ronnie, they met Dolores, and they met me, and they said, we have a farm, do you like milk? And we're going to come and you can live with us. That was neat. You know, and I was there for 8 years, 8 to 12. Chatham Center is, and by the way, to be a black family, a black farm family in Chatham Center, New York, extraordinary. They had goats, chickens, a cow, and whatever. It was a good life until the information that none of us get as children. And if I did not do piecework, I'd be a social worker because there's so much information they leave out. But we didn't know they were getting paid to take care of us. They got a budget. They got a budget for clothes and food and whatnot. And I didn't know this, but no one told us at the age of 18, you age out. But I got my, no men don't get squeamish, I got my period at 12 years old. And I didn't know this, but she said, I think Mandy's going to have to go because I don't want to have this girl having any children. I didn't know this until I read this years later, but I didn't know why I was being asked to leave after they asked me to come. So just think about that. And it's not just me, but just think about what that does. Now, the good thing is, after I was asked to leave the Chatham Center, whatever, foster home, they put me in the Schenectady's children's home, and I was so happy because I was back where I thought I belonged. There was structure. You got up at the same time, you ate your meals at the same time, but what I thought was the smartest thing they ever did, they put us in the public school systems of Schenectady. Mount Pleasant High School, class in 1966. And thank you to my social studies teacher, Jack Hickey. I'm sitting there, what was it, my junior year, and he said, well, we're going to bring some outside person in and they're going to talk to you about something relevant to social studies. That one 40-minute class is why I'm in this chair today. Young white staffer, and I wish I could find out who this was. He was, as AFSC is predominantly a white peace group, it is what it is. But what they were doing, they were down south as a predominantly white peace group talking about how can we figure out how we partner with and become an ally in the civil rights movement. That was the first thing they were doing. The second thing he said, it really blew me away at the time, and I didn't get it, but I get it now. Because the Quakers are so grounded in full equality and justice for all, if that's your fundamental basic rock, right? That no matter what the issue might come along, that just keeps you grounded. But it was the third thing, the power of one. And he said, yeah, the power of one. Think about this. Now, this society operates on who you know, how much money you have, how much influence you have, blah, blah, blah. But we walk around, every one of us has a moral compass. Every one of us has a moral compass. So he said the power of one. The power of one means that each and every one of us has the potential to impact change if we so choose to act on it. Yeah, whatever. And of course now we have many stories I thought about that. But the last thing he said is why I'm here also. By the way, we have an American Friends Service Committee high school work camp in the Pocono Mountains who would like to go. That hand going up, I went back to the home and said, can you let me go to this camp in Pocono Mountains? Yeah, I'm going to go, whatever. I went. And at this camp, has anyone ever been to one of these? You know, I know other people do it. Well, anyway, the bottom line is that we had to pick the crop that we were going to eat that night. We stayed in a bunkhouse, but they were bringing resource people in. And the couple they brought in that really changed my life in one way was Guy and Candy Carowin. Guy and Candy Carowin, who were, and I never heard this term, cultural workers. Cultural workers, they were folk singers, but they were at the Highlander Center in Newmarket, Tennessee, which, by the way, was intentionally started by black and white folk to talk about how they were going to deal with the civil rights movement, intentionally. And that place got burned to the ground because Klan said, we have no white and black folk having no meetings in Tennessee. But you can't burn down the idea. Highlander Center is still there. So when Guy and Candy Carowin, they must have been, I don't know, whatever, but they moved me and they were saying, yeah, and what we're doing, we're not going down and singing in the South. We're bringing our tape recorder and we're recording the freedom songs and the freedom meetings in these churches. They're still at the Smithsonian right now. And Guy just passed, I think, last year. And I always wondered, if you had to ask each one of you, who was the who? What was the what? And they just plant these seeds, and I'll never forget that. So I'm at this high school work camp, loved it, and then I went back to the home, and then I found out, at the age of 18 you age out. So if you're not adopted, you're on your own, which is fine by me. I have no shade on those who are in the foster care system or orphanage. This is my personal story. That's why I'm glad to hear who's doing the thing. You're doing the thing about foster children. So the takeaways, though, from that camp, now here's what happened. Because I went to Mount Pleasant High School, I was just at my 50th high school year reunion up in Schenectady. I was a cheerleader, one of the first black cheerleaders. Can you believe it? I can't do the flying split anymore, but
That's why everybody's here, Mandy.
Are there any other cheerleaders who want to come out? That was a moment for me. That did more to validate my life than anything else. Because Mount Pleasant High School is Schenectady, it's GE, you're mostly Italian, whatever, no shade. But to be one of the first black cheerleaders, and I only did it because this is the key thing, someone asked me. And as I sit here all these years later, I wonder if we're in this room because someone took the time to ask me.
Yes.
You should try this, whatever. I tried out, I said, there's no way I'm going to get it, I got it. But that was the days before, when, say it loud, I'm black and my proud, I couldn't have the fro, I had to do the, what do you call it, Dixie Creech in a hot room? But I share that because as one of the first black cheerleaders in this school, and this is one of those interesting aha moments, we were like all the local high schools, we played basketball and football and whatever, and I remember we had beat this team, I can't remember, it was Niskayuna or something, and as I was getting on the bus, I heard out of the crowd, oh no, there goes that N-word. And I remember thinking, well, what are they talking about? When I say all y'all, the home was all white middle class in terms of the values, what you were taught, what your aspirations were. That's why I think it's very, very, very important to be very clear the difference between class issues, race issues, and you don't mix them all up. Because all I knew in my life, that was the first time, and I did not know he was talking about me.
Wow.
And other people said, well, Mandy, aren't you offended? I said, well, see, I'm just saying that because I'm saying all you know is all you know. It's important to ask, where did you come from? Where did you come from? If all you've known is one thing, it's not until you see something else, what else do you have to compare it with? So that to me is just, I think it's a critical moment in a conversation as we continue to have these intergenerational, multi-generational class issues, where you live, what language you say. So another couple of quick ones, and I want to make sure we have time for the fishbowl. The reason why I'm saying I'm in tears when I just saw Vincent O'Connor, when I had dropped, they were going to offer to put me in, they said, Mandy, if you stay in school, we'll pay for your entire education. I wanted to be a doctor. It was too late. I had already gotten the bug of the Quakers and so too late. But that would have been extraordinary had they. So I took my $80 that I had, I put it in my pocket, I took a bus down to New York City. I didn't know it sold, but I stayed at the YWCA. The YWCA factors in a couple of times, but I ran out of money. So I did what everyone else was doing in 1967. I started sleeping in Central Park. I went down to the Greenwich Village, and where's NYU with the benches right there? You know, it was cool, it was summer, it was, you know. And I was walking down Hudson Street. Anyone know Hudson Street? Yeah. And there was a big sign, free lunch, come on in. I was hungry. So I go in, and this is what I hate. There was nothing but men in that room. They were hitting on every woman who came in. I'm so disgusted. And so, of course, the first night I had a choice between 3 guys and 2 guys and 1 guy, and I said, I'll go with you, because I thought, God, at least maybe. And I came back and I said, you know what's happening here when people are coming into New York for a place to stay? There's all these men down here. To make a long story short, they said, well, I'll tell you what, if you will answer this phone, and you'll find out who this building belonged to, between the hours of 8 at night and 6 in the morning, we'll have you a place for a mattress behind a curtain. Timothy Leary owned that. It was the League for Spiritual Discovery, LSD. The League, can you believe it? Can you believe it? The League for Spiritual Discovery. And that was one of the best summers of my life. East Village, you had Janis Joplin and the Big Brother Holding Company, Grace Slick, I mean, all the, you know, whatever. And we spent time with, you know, cold watermelon down in the East. Oh, it was great. And oh, by the way, if you do acid, has anyone done it? You don't want to come out. Come down quickly with either vitamin B or niacin. I know you, but that's what I have to say. So the summer was wrapping up, and we said, what are we going to do? And by the way, he has a beautiful home up in White Plains, New York, Timothy Leary, whatever. The summer was wrapping up, and 3 of us decided to hitchhike across the country to go where? San Francisco to Haight-Ashbury, what else would we do? So it was me, Toshi, Japanese, and Natalia, white woman.
Wow.
And we were gonna just pick our, and I wouldn't do it now, but anyway, everyone was hitchhiking.
Yeah.
And you know where we're down in the West Village, you take the Holland Tunnel and you come up to the thing, and we stop at a truck stop. This story I'll never forget about why race can be all kinds of shades of color. So we go up to the truck stop, and it's a white gentleman behind the counter, and we just want to get some sandwiches and some soda and whatever. Looks at me, looks at Toshi, looks at Natalia and says, we serve here, we don't serve no colored people in here.
Wow.
And we said, you're joking, right? Colored people? We just came from the village. I said, you see any colored people in here? I did notice a black gentleman doing those damn dishes behind the counter, but I could not, that was, how long is a Holland Tunnel? Hold that thought. Then we get to Chicago, black section of Chicago, and I said, we're gonna get us some good barbecue. Go into a black restaurant, black gentleman behind the counter, looks at me, looks at Toshi, looks at Natalia, said, we're serving you, we ain't serving no white people here. That was one of the most remarkable moments of my life. Because every time I hear, no one can be a racist, whatever, no, yeah, you can. But here's the sad thing. As children, no one's born this way, I don't think so. Do you think people are born racist? No. But if you have a family and all you've been told, watch out for and your family, you watch out. By the time y'all meet each other, you're like this. And that was a remarkable moment for me, because that made me think the next time I hear black people can't be racist, no, yeah, you can, whatever. It's an institution.
Yeah.
And I thought about that. Then we finally get to San Francisco, and here's the part that's remarkable. In 1967, the summer of '67, everyone was playing, what's that, Scott McKenzie's If You Come to San Francisco.
Yes.
That guy was paid to make that song because thousands were moving, they wanted to create a mood. If you come to San Francisco, be sure to wear some flowers in your hair. We played it. And we go to the Haight-Ashbury switchboard, and it's a little office, and they have a Rolodex. And of all the names that we picked, Vincent O'Connor. Of all the names, where is Vincent? Show your face. Stand up, Vincent. Now, of all the cards, and Vincent O'Connor, he was at 591 Waller. It was myself and a couple of folks, and they moved on, but we did. And because of Vincent O'Connor, who was a draft resistor working at the Catholic Peace Fellowship, I went down a couple of days and helped at the Catholic Peace Fellowship. But most importantly, we went down to the Institute for the Study of Nonviolence, Joan Baez and Ira Sampearl in Carmel Valley, California.
Wow.
And what were they talking about? They were talking about the first ever nonviolent CD action at the Oakland Induction Center, because that's where every young man had to go through. And because we had talked about that action, I decided to sit in December of 1967. And guess who I met in there? A woman by the name of Jane Shulman, who said, have you ever heard of WL West? Well, we have a potluck, would you like to come? Mandy Carter was one of the first jobs I got at WL West, and we're all in the same room. What does that say to you about the intentionality? So I want to end that, because I'm just so struck. Whatever it is, we have a passion. But also, I'm also really struck, because Vincent said something else. I'm really struck by the importance of the hearts and minds part of what we do. But boy, if we don't get that public policy part, it's key.
Yeah.
Judges, courts, city council meetings, town council, Supreme Court, and I'm sitting here thinking, and sometimes I'm really struck, because right now we're in an amazing 6-year window. From 2013 to 2018, every year that ticks by is a major civil rights movement, 55, 65, whatever it might be. Like this year, we won the Montgomery bus boycott 60 years ago. But who came down to Montgomery, Alabama when they were doing that? Bayard Rustin. And who was organizing the 60th March on Washington? But, and I have to tell you, as one of the few people of color within WRL, that's good, because that's part of what it is. I got to meet Wally and Juanita, William Dothard, Lisa, and other folk. Because if what your group is, just own it. Don't shy, whatever it is. But the point is, then how do we, as people of color, or if we're in like rural or for whatever, how do we, and we'll get to this point as we have this conversation, how do we bring who we are and our gifts? But it's not like there's only one table to sit at. You got tons of tables. The question is, do we are we safe in our space? But then do we get up and go to someone else's table because that table is set? You don't think there's a bunch of people of color sitting around a room like this thinking, plotting and planning? They are too. But when do we find ways in which we proactively or we intentionally find ways to be in each other's spaces? And that might be where I'm good, I'm fine with who I am, but I can own that. But I also know people would not step foot in this room, and I can own that too. But for those of us who want to figure out how we have joint conversation with each other and talk about what's the commonality of why we should be in each other's spaces, and this is where I'll end with the 10,000 foot thing. Is there a napkin or something? I'm crying and I'm a clean one?
It's a guy. Randy, I might have known you for 50 years,
Randy.
but I don't want your hanky.
I've known you for quite a while.
It's clean. That's not, I go to jail with you, Randy.
I forgive you, man.
What a moment. So here's my 10,000 foot thing. I'm in North Carolina, and I moved there. In fact, when I moved to North Carolina, I wanted a job east of the Mississippi because I was born in Albany, because WRL West was there. So I'll take any job east of the Mississippi where the Warriors are. Of all the, where do you think it was? Durham, North Carolina. And the reason why, we were just talking about this, WRL would set up their offices in the backyard of militarism. Like well, now you did more consciously with WRL New England, but like where Durham is, we are 2.5 miles from every major military base in every war that's ever happened in this country. Fort Bragg, Camp Lejeune, Cherry Point. So intentionally we were there. And so I ended up in Durham, North Carolina. But I've been really pondering this a lot, and I'm so glad this timing is perfect. If you were to ask people in whatever language, what are the things that would put you around the table that you normally would not be around usually? I'll repeat myself. If you were to ask people, what would be the thing or things that would put you around the table that you normally would not be at? And at the 10,000 foot level, I'm thinking this: clean air, clean water. Nobody should be hungry. We have farmers paid not to grow because they can control those prices at the market. No one should be homeless. No one should be hungry. Everyone should have access to an education, however you define that. And everyone should have access to health care. These should just be given. And whatever language you speak, wherever you live. And if you bring that conversation to the table, however you define it, I'm really struck by people saying, well, I don't even know you, but I know I care about my kids drinking that water. Flint, and the power of one, thank you to the pediatrician in Flint, Michigan said, there's something wrong with this water. And thank you to the newspaper reporter said, let's make this, and thank you Rachel Maddow to say, this is an issue, the power of one. And now you see what that has created, and each one of us walks around with that. So as we look at that, and I'm sure we could add more than to that 10,000 thing, because if we get that, then maybe we can be in conversations, and maybe we can walk up and be a part of, because my fear is that I only know this, I don't know you, whatever. Or, and I think the other part is, and I said this, JoAnn, if I can articulate this well, I know who I am in my circle, and I want to keep the autonomy of who I am. And you might be another whole new group that wants to start something, and you have that. But rather than either one of us owning that, no, we start something third. Yeah. Something from day one that's owned by and formed with and a part of, because then there's a collective sense of what that thing is. And then you can always still run back and be a part of whatever your autonomous might be. But if we don't take the risk and we don't put that out there in terms of what's possible, and to me, I'm thinking culturally as a black person, we have a huge Latina community now in North Carolina. So it meant the difference with the First Catholic Church who was offering to do their masses in Spanish and English. That was a game changer. It was happening when Mount Olive Pickle Company was organizing, trying to hold back their farm labor. And they said, maybe we need to have a walk from Mount Olive to the state capitol to talk about what's happening with our farm workers in Mount Olive, North Carolina. The owner said, you ain't got no power, there's nothing you can do. And Southerners on New Ground, one of the groups we started, we sat at that table. And we walked that entire way. And we had meetings all in Spanish, and for the first time in my life, I had to put the headsets on, talk about an aha moment. And it matters if you have something in Spanish and English or whatever the other languages might be. And Stellan, you know, we just were here, but what was it, like this past year, we had a conversation with people from the Black Panthers and SNCC and young folk from Ferguson. Now here's the careful thing. Generationally, because of all the social media, and that didn't happen where you were, but it happened in Shaw University in Raleigh. Someone from SNCC made an interesting comment, and I hope this doesn't cause a lot of drama, but we're not a hashtag movement. Oh my God, you could cut the room with a knife. We're not a hashtag movement. But he didn't mean it in any kind of bad way. He was just, you know. So I just want to say, I want to end with this. I just think these are, and if all of us have conversations that we're doing now, and if you figure out why it works, why doesn't it work, what could be something we could do differently, how do we figure out how we engage, and this could not just be the only conversation, it can be the first of many, but who's willing to step out and like say, I've never done this before, I'm willing to take a chance and try. And the other thing I'm really struck by is if you have something, we were talking about Seabrook, if you have something, that might be something we could use in North Carolina. Why not put that out there to share? We might fine-tune it or something. So we shouldn't keep all of our little things to ourselves. We might share like how that might happen and figure out how we might go it. So I'll end with this. My optimism is 100%. I am committed, I'm not going anywhere. And the other good news, people pay people now to do this work. There are foundations, there are family foundations. You need to do it, let's give you the money you need, but we need to make those connections as well. And then finally, when we have the conversation, what grounds us? Why are we all here? And what keeps us grounded, and where do we go from here? So I'm willing to help be part of that conversation, and it's good to be with you all, and I hope to meet every one of you personally throughout this day. Good?
Good.